He betrayed me, treating 3 years of my efforts as a joke, seeing me as someone disposable. I didn't argue or beg. I quietly pushed him toward the abyss he feared the most. He thought I would break, that I would plead for him to come back. But what I really did was let him taste the sting of losing everything. Now he stands in the wreckage of his own making. Phones unanswered, roads blocked, even a single plea sounding pitiful. He finally understands, but it's too late. Regret is all he has left. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Lyra's voice trembled slightly over the phone. I gripped the phone, my fingers turning cold. After a brief silence, I finally said, "I've made up my mind, Lyra. Our paths no longer cross." But I thought you would understand." Her voice choked with emotion. "I understand you. I understand your parents. But I can't deny 3 years of my hard work for someone else's approval." My voice was low, a reminder to myself to stay rational. I hung up the phone. The night outside was thick as ink. I leaned against the sofa, recalling tonight's dinner, or more accurately, the sudden judgment I had faced. "Rowan, I only wanted her to have the best life possible. Your father said I needed bigger ambitions, right? 3 years of effort, of building brick by brick, were swallowed in that cold assessment." I didn't argue. I quietly stood up, opened the dining room door, and left that polished but frostbitten room with all my shock and disappointment. Back at my apartment, the harsh light on the walls felt piercing. I sat at my desk, holding the latest case files, unable to summon energy. 3 years of love, 3 years of effort, shattered like broken glass in an instant. I remembered the early days of starting my practice. A tiny clinic, second-hand equipment, almost nothing. Yet every smile I designed for patients, every confident glance I earned, felt worth it. But in Lyra's world, it was never enough. The wind brushed the curtains outside, and her face, and her parents, kept flashing through my mind. Lyra had never defended me in front of them. Her eyes always avoided mine, as if condoning their judgment. Did I really make a mistake? I whispered to myself. That night I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Missed calls and messages flashed on my phone like invisible hammers, each one striking my chest. But I knew I could not turn back. I picked up a pen and wrote everything down. Anger, guilt, every raw feeling spilling onto the paper. My hands trembled as I wrote. Tears blurred my vision. Months later, after my clinic had been fully upgraded with the latest imaging equipment and a dedicated smile design room, I met Sienna. She was a plastic surgeon, smart, direct, and passionate about her work. Our first encounter was a chance meeting in a cafe, yet we talked for 3 hours, covering everything from medical ethics to mountain trails. When she spoke of her own relationships, she said lightly but firmly, "Some people can't accept your passion, not because you're not good enough, but because they can't handle your light." In that moment, I felt a long-lost sense of recognition. Over time, Sienna became a new pillar in my life. We respected each other's work and savored every little detail of daily life. I no longer needed to prove myself to anyone. I understood that true value requires no one else's approval. Yet the past sometimes surfaces unexpectedly. Lyra's parents, after my achievements, suddenly invited me to dinner, intending to clear up misunderstandings. After discussing with Sienna, we decided to accept, not to reconcile, but to uphold a sense of justice for myself. At the restaurant, the lake reflected the table, and the previous coldness was masked by forced politeness. Lyra remained silent, occasionally murmuring agreement. Her parents spoke cautiously about my achievements, clearly with ulterior motives. Sienna quietly said, "Their approval was never about you. It was about saving face." I nodded, understanding. No need to argue, no need to bow. 3 years of effort, countless sleepless nights were enough. Days later, patients poured into the clinic. Each time I saw their confident smiles, I felt deep satisfaction. Sienna worked alongside me. We collaborated wordlessly, each surgery and design an unspoken communication. Once, I paused at the operating table and asked her, "Do you think my persistence was worth it?" She smiled, her fingers brushing my shoulder. "Every choice was worth it, especially the ones where you stayed true to yourself instead of yielding to others." Late at night, the office lights still on, I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker. Sienna's hand gently found mine, and we smiled at each other without words. I gripped her hand and whispered, "Thank you for staying with me through all this." She smiled softly. "No, you did it yourself. I just stayed by your side." I nodded, a feeling of unprecedented security settling in my heart. Outside, the city lights shone brightly, and I finally understood. True happiness does not come from others' approval, but from inner resolve and courage. That night I slept soundly. In my dreams, smiles were clear, untouched by sorrow. Morning light streamed in, illuminating the busy clinic and the path ahead. Life is long, and each choice, each act of persistence, is a unique landscape of one's own making. I watched the clinic lights, patients' bright smiles, and Sienna whisper, "You're amazing." I had finally learned to smile. Not for anyone, but for myself. The night wind brushed the windowsill, softly touching my face. Sienna leaned close, and we exchanged a quiet smile. I held her hand firmly and whispered, "Thank you for walking with me." She smiled. "No, you walked yourself here. I just stayed beside you." I nodded, feeling an unprecedented sense of peace. Outside, the city lights shone, and I finally understood. True happiness does not come from anyone else, but from the unwavering courage within.